to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Richard Miller, and my co-host is happy to tell anyone that will listen that he's not on Different Gravy for the money. He could earn more money in Greece. He could earn more money anywhere. He could earn more money busking, he says, in a way that is totally ingratiating and not a bit smug in any way at all. He's my friend and yours, Dr. Luke Gledall. How are you doing today, Luke?
Good. How are you today, Rich?
I'm all right. Yes, yeah. I mean, obviously, we're hot on the heels of yet another weekend ruined by Wednesday. But maybe I'm becoming inert or immune to it. I did enjoy having a Saturday without having to worry about Wednesday, to be honest, which maybe is a bad sign in terms of dedication and mental state. Did you have similar sort of feelings?
I had the weird thing, I mean, we can get into this looking at the news, but I had that weird thing where I kind of missed my midweek disappointment of watching.
Right,
Wednesday.
Okay.
So, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me.
You've grown accustomed to midweek misery. And
I think so, yeah.
Can't imagine life without it.
Mm.
Oh, yeah, I've got to say, I just watched other things and just didn't feel sad. And generally, that was, it was a welcome break. Okay, so, I mean, we should probably get into this. It has been a big week in terms of news, hasn't it? So let's, if you don't mind, let's get ourselves into that headspace.
Breaking hoo-hoos.
I don't know what's particularly the best order to tackle this, but we've had the long-awaited late accounts, and I did see somebody, and it may well have been Neil on House Talk, saying the one thing you can guarantee with accounts is that nobody will agree on how to read them. And I have seen several different takes. But the club is losing $1.5 million a month. Seems to be the sort of takeaway headline.
That seems about right.
Which we're entirely at the mercy of our benefactor then to keep the club afloat and keep servicing those losses.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to work out the maths of our punishment and the ground sale and whether we'll see any benefit of the ground sale now in terms of financial fair play. And
do you want to share your beautiful drawings, pen biro masterpiece in the show notes for this one, Rich? Because I quite enjoyed that, I must admit.
I can do, yeah. Just as a sort of, my mind sort of wandered during my work week, it has to be said. But there's the fact we can only be punished for a group of 3-year losses once. So that group of 3 years that ended with the points deduction this year, that finished. Well, that was 2018 we were punished for, but we weren't punished until 2021. Anyway, yeah, I'll share my sort of beautiful mind moment of different bits and pieces, but it feels like the worst possible option is getting punished for 1 year, and then the ground sale that was supposed to dope the figures going through the next year. And I wonder how much time has been spent looking at whether there was a way that we could make the ground sale happen, not the year following the punishment, and actually some point closer to now. I suspect that might be part of why there's been such a long delay, is just looking at every angle to try and possibly make that pay off in some way, because effectively we only have 1 year where we're not being punished, that the ground sale will benefit us, and that falls right in the middle of COVID times, which have slightly loosened rules anyway. It doesn't look a wonderful picture. We knew that we were just surviving on the whims of John Chansiri. It's absolutely confirmed by this set of accounts. I don't understand the ground shenanigans, but that doesn't give me warm, fuzzy feelings. Do you have any thoughts on the kind of headlines coming away from that?
Wasn't there an interesting thing about the supposed compensation for a manager, which is rumored that if we're putting 2 and 2 together, that if you're talking about compensation, that's because there's a figure of compensation of about 6 million.
That's right.
And then one person in the Twitter sphere or journalism or seeming financial expert said, well, that's compensation for a manager. So therefore 2 + 2 equals Steve Bruce.
Which it seemed like a tidy sum. So it was in the region of sort of 7 million or something, wasn't it?
That's astonishing.
Yeah. That's the best bit of transfer business that the club has.
It is. It is. I definitely think so, yeah.
I don't remember ever selling a player for that.
We're looking at a conjecture of potentially Lucas Zhao being rumoured to be around the kind of 5 million mark, which at the time seemed like a brilliant deal for Sheffield Wednesday. Might not be looking so rosy now that he's not.
No.
He's probably scored almost as many as Sheffield Wednesday have scored across the entirety of the squad.
Oh dear, yes.
Right now. So, but yeah, no, that is astonishing considering we seem to be running a business model, which this will probably link to the next piece we talk about. I think we can talk about next is players being eyed by other clubs. So we can talk about, well, let's just have a look at this right now. I mean, it's such a weird standard, the fact that I want to talk about, like, it's incredibly sad that our record signing is going to leave on a free.
Yeah.
And also then previous to that was probably another previous kind of signing up there of Adam Reach, who was probably, if we're thinking about this, probably around, maybe the deal is structured with add-ons, but to be kind of around the 4 to 5 million mark. I think that was kind of touted at the time.
Yeah.
And he's probably going to go on a free as well. But then there's also the follow-up to this. I was chatting with my eldest brother about Sheffield Wednesday, as I often do. And it's like, well, do you want to keep these players? I'm like, no. But it's just that, like,
this is what we talked about. I think the classic example of this is Ozil at Arsenal. It's the
yes.
It's the accounting exercise of a football player, and yes, it seems strange to have such huge outlays for these guys, and then they leave for nothing. But then the thought of handing them a contract to try and realise some of that value is...
Right, to try and appeal that kind of
Yes.
Yep, you know what I'm saying. Say it.
Yeah.
Please say it, because I can't pronounce it.
Amortization, is it?
Amortization, I believe. Yes.
I don't know. Anyway, to stop them going to the morgue and crumbling...
We freeze them in carbonite, a la Han Solo.
Yes. It's the only way.
Mm.
But essentially, that's how you end up in these situations where it's players that actually the manager doesn't really want. They don't really play that much. But for the sake of losing the potential payday, they get kept on. And players benefit from this massively because they just keep racking up contracts. They get better. Ozil has been in a position where he would get a better contract at Arsenal than anywhere else, and Arsenal can't afford to not give him the terms he wants. So that he has grown, as you know, has got very, very healthy returns on this weird paradox that exists for
he has been the weird looking poster boy of such a thing. And Sheffield Wednesday is saying, if we freeze an expensive turd, is it still an expensive turd?
Well, the flip side of that is that you just bite the bullet and you let players go when you've spent huge transfer sums. You let them go for nothing, and that's where we're at the other side of that, where we haven't made that. We haven't made the decision to try and save whatever we can from that. We're just letting them disappear. I mean, maybe we've offered contracts. I wouldn't be surprised if Reach has been offered a contract, but then I also would be very surprised if he stayed on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're probably going to look at a reduction on his terms, right? I mean, because again, they're perfect players to go in this championship. They're perfect players to get new opportunities at new clubs that might be able to realize and give them a new lease of life, maybe put an arm around them and maybe put them in a situation where they have a defined role within a defined system, which I think has been the problem of all players at Sheffield Wednesday.
Particularly Reach, I think.
Yeah.
Just because you're capable of something doesn't mean you should be given that task. And he's been given tasks that he was just about capable of so many times. And it's been at the expense of his game and our game, because there's things he's very good at. And he should really just be given a position where he can concentrate on that. Although it is hilarious. I mean, we were on Sky again, and it's so funny how players' perceptions get like baked in at a certain point.
Yeah.
I just eat the same. So, I mean, to be fair, Jordan Rhodes did his bit today. You know, he's a great goal scorer. He's so natural in those moments. And with Reach, it's like, oh, he scores worldies. And it's like, well, when was the last time he did? And like, I had 2 efforts today that were dreadful. And it's like, well, you don't mind him having those. Like, well, no, that's all he ever does now. But it's amazing, that reputation. And I actually think that laziness and that long-term reputation will earn them contracts, both those players, as they leave. Because for all the money ball, look at the figures, look at the numbers, you will get some old clodder who trusts his... I don't look at the numbers. I trust my heart. I know when I speak to a player what's in there. And, you know, like there'll be one of them. And they'll hand out contracts to them because they saw, you know, they've seen the YouTube where Adam Reach hits 10 wonderful goals. And the fact that, you know, it's now some of those clips are in black and white, it's been so long, doesn't seem to matter. It's a mad world, football. But seeing them being eyed up, does that frustrate you in that you sort of think, well, clearly there's a market here, maybe we should have tried to get rid of them earlier, or not really?
Well, that's the problem. The problem then becomes, again, is like I've zero faith in Sheffield Wednesday to replace these players.
Yeah.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. It's a bit like, you know, we live in modern times where jobs change and things get automated and workforces get less and there's less companies, so there's less jobs within those certain things. Technically, you know, there's new jobs being created, but there are jobs being lost, you know. But I feel there's a weird way, like it almost feels to me like Chansiri would be like, well, maybe we could play with 7 players on the pitch. Like I feel the same mentality. Like
a rumba with a football boot.
We signed a lot of players this year, but like there was still like a loss on the side of the squad. But then we typically in Sheffield Wednesday's recent history, we have a large squad of which a large number of those are injured. How many players were we missing today? 8 players? You know, if you, or say missing in terms of, that's kind of like the flash score mentality. Basically, like these players will not be in contention today.
You're right. I mean, I suppose the thing is, it's making signings. You want to build as a plan. There's an overarching goal that we're trying to get to with making signings. And too many of the signings in the summer were, yeah, I suppose, you know, if they were available for the right price, you know, why not? Why not have a little nibble? They were not like, this is the squad we want to build. This is the guy we need to play here. This is the guy we need to play there. This is, you know, the shopping list of, we need a holding midfielder, we need a central defender, we need, you know, it didn't feel like that. It felt like, you know, the dregs of what's left after everyone else has had their fill. Can we do something with them? Like, Kachunga's a weird signing for a team that doesn't play wingers and only plays one up top who tends to be a target man.
Yes.
Why we sign Kachunga? I don't know. Just it feels so scattergun, and I think it lends itself to these kind of conspiracies about, well, are we only allowed to sign people that are linked to Paxal, or who knows?
Yeah.
But that's the thing. We should be looking at this summer in terms of how many people are leaving, how much room there should be in the budget, and thinking, oh, great, rebuild.
Well, that's again the definition of this, and we can see that the Sheffield Wednesday team is like, I'd like the idea of, especially now, I don't know, there's an interesting thing, like I'm happy to see a manager like Darren Moore given the chance to build the squad in his definition. I feel like I've said this about Gary Monk before.
Yeah.
But then I don't know how much control.
Know that happened.
I don't know if that's. Yeah. I don't know if that happened. So is that going to happen again? I don't know. Like, a lot of our life is waiting, Rich. The Samuel Beckett play, waiting for Godot. I'm waiting for Vaccino, and I'm waiting for Chansiri to get a Cluo. Really, and I don't know when that's going to happen. If that is going to happen, is it foolish to think that? I've
just heard that. Yep, we've made the signing pre-contract for Colonel Mustard because he'd heard that the fans wanted him to get a Cluedo. So no, he's acting on the fact, like signing Jordan Rhodes. He's listening to the fans. He's acting on what we say, and it's our fault, frankly, if it goes wrong from here. Colonel Mustard, heart of the midfield next season. You heard it here first folks. In
the conservatory of a can of tuna.
It doesn't feel like that. Yeah, it doesn't feel like there's any sort of forethought to things. I think there was a model. You can argue that it was a bad model, but the model, Wembley.
Sorry,
go on. Well, the model that took us to Wembley was, let's sign good, solid, top-end championship pros who only have a couple of years left, but we'll be the team that gets the last couple of years. We'll give them 2 years instead of one. Everyone else is offering them one, and we'll reap the benefits of that. We'll get players that are sort of better than expected for a bit longer than, for that usefulness. And that'll get us over the line. Maybe the plan changes when we get in the Premier League. But that kind of almost worked for 2 years. We got to the playoff final. We got to the semi-finals. We did better that second year than we did the first year. So there's a model. It's not a long-term thought-out model, but it's a model, and it made sense. Since then, and maybe since the January of that second season, what we're doing doesn't really make much sense. There hasn't been that thought.
No, that's a really good point. I think you bring up. It's kind of like the transfer model is more like especially with like a player like Achunga, is the mentality is we need. I think it's still like a very crass definition of let's build a squad. Let's put up on the wall, a picture of a football pitch, and we will define the classic 4-4-2.
Yeah.
And the classic mentality that you need 2 players for every position, but you don't see them in individual positions. You just see banks. You see defenders as a bank of 4. You see midfielders as a bank of 4, and you just see strikers as
or
2.
Even just forwards seems to be the
it's just like you just need a player for this category.
Yeah.
So we've met that remit, but there's no further definition to say
no.
We need this player to be this type of player,
So in this sort of field, then when we've got these players that are contracts are running down, we've got teams looking at them. I imagine you were as pleased as I was to hear that Hutch is working his way towards another year on his deal.
Oh, I loved it, especially as I think the kind of first article in the local press seemed to think that this was basically triggered on a number of games, which then also I then kind of conjectured that previously, like, the guy is seemingly undroppable in terms of the Sheffield Wednesday hierarchy, whoever's making those decisions.
And the other thing to factor in is, from Hutchinson's point of view, play through whatever. because you hit the jackpot if you hit whatever the magic number is. I remember Nicky Weaver played just enough games to get his extra year on his deal, and then we barely saw him again after that.
Yep.
He took a season and a half off and was constantly injured because he'd done it. He'd won anyway. He'd got the deal. So
yeah,
tick. Oh, another year of him getting slower and tired quicker and more lapses in concentration. Oh, it's horrifying.
I recall the conversation we had, I don't know if it was on the podcast, where you were telling me about how Jamie Vardy is getting, is fitter this year than he was last year.
Yes.
It feels like a revolutionary same mentality, just which is getting older and slower. But Luke, he's getting worse year on year. Scientifically, they can define he's getting worse. I mean, like every other player, Rich. Like, no, it's different.
Well, I think you plateau, don't you? You reach a physical peak. If you're lucky and you're disciplined, you maintain that physical peak for a period of time. But
his twitch fibers are turning into zucchini noodles. Science has proved it.
By next year, there'll be rice noodles, which are the most brittle of noodles. But yeah, once you start that descent, it only speeds up from there.
Yeah.
It's not like we talked about young players, and like young players can plateau or they can get worse or they can get better. Sometimes they get better in huge leaps. Sometimes they get better slowly over time. But when it's the end of somebody's career, it's all just downhill. Nobody gets better as they get older, really. They just maintain for longer, and that surprises us. Oh dear. Anyway, yeah. Not the news I needed, I think, this week, to be honest.
No. This is kind of why I needed a game of football. A game of disappointing Sheffield Wednesday football midweek.
Well, the last little bit of news to deal with, and then we've got something different and fun to address. But we had this very classy statement from Liam Shaw. Was that a snigger from Luke?
I was thinking of something else. Sorry. Carry on. Let's talk about Showware.
Well, I thought it was classy from him, and I think it hopefully dampens down some of the kind of
vitriol aimed at him.
Vitriol is a good word for it, not just at him but also at the club. I don't know why anybody's getting vitriolic at Liam Shaw. That is just out of order.
Well, it's disappointing, and I don't know. I think there's. I mean, outside of aiming direction and anger towards Mr. Chansiri, I don't know. It's someone else to get out. I can kind of.
It's another place to vent.
It's another place to vent. Doesn't make it any better or nice or allowable. I'm just saying I can see why people are doing it. I was a little bit angry at Liam Shaw, I'll be honest, for a bit, but I don't know. It's fine. He's a.
When you stop sipping that haterade.
But then I think once you get over that, it's very much kind of good wishes for him in his career, really.
Well, there's also the news this week that there's going to be an investigation into that.
Right. I mean, this is the thing that kind of irritates me the most. Do you want to kind of detail your thoughts, and I can kind of come in on this one as well?
Well, I don't know all the ins and outs of it, so I don't want to sort of speculate too much. But, well, I mean, we've just got to do what we can to try and make sure we receive a fair compensation for the time and effort put into his burgeoning career. So I don't know. It seems strange to put more effort in after the event, but then if you take Liam Shaw's own statement at face value, then there's not much Wednesday could have done outside of offering him something stupid. So we've got to now pursue this through the authorities and try and claw back some money. But what's your thinking? What's raised your ire in this regard, Luke?
Well, I was angry, and then I feel like I've kind of walked it back a little bit. Maybe I'm just a sheer level of apathetic resignation about everything Sheffield Wednesday. I feel there's a lot to be said about, like, we live our lives and you can get upset about a lot of things in life. But I think you get to a certain point and you just kind of have to accept that, this is the level of conditions that you're living with today and the situation.
Yeah.
I am a little bit sympathetic because the compensation model is bent. And I'm sure Dejphon Chansiri, much like a lot of Sheffield Wednesday fans, is probably still hurting from the George Hurst debacle and what happened there.
Yes, because that was, whatever way you look at it, that was as crooked as a sort of 9-bob note, wasn't it? That it's maybe allowable within the rules, or or we like talking about people being cute or clever in football when we mean cheating, and that was cute or clever but cheating. There's no two ways around it. That was really
exactly. But maybe I can say this: don't come out and say you're going to do an investigation into this, because this is the current state of play regarding the rules.
Yeah,
it is bent, and it is crap that you can have a player who leaves like outside of the English league system and compensation is deemed to be less. But is there anything that anyone can do to try and make a point and case for that, to kind of change that model? That would be something I'd think that is something you should put a direction into, rather than going like to make it sound like that statement says that he wants to go through a legal route.
Well, I wonder if it is important, the kind of course of events, because what's different here is it seems like the acknowledgement from Neil Lennon was made before Sheffield Wednesday were officially informed that Shaw wasn't staying with us. And I don't know whether it's one of those rules, a bit like tapping up. It doesn't really matter until it matters. Like, tapping up happens all the
time. I know.
People only ever chase it and get fined for it sometimes. And I wonder if it's a bit like tapping up. Like, the way that it's supposed to happen is Liam Shaw has to officially turn our contract down, then can talk to other clubs or something like that. And I'm just wondering because it seemed to be the kind of crux of it, was the fact that their manager or somebody within their it was Neil Lennon, wasn't it, or was it somebody else?
I thought it was their assistant manager.
It was the assistant manager, right?
I want to say John Kennedy, but I could be wrong.
Okay, somebody within the team there at Celtic basically sort of said, "Yeah, we're signing him," and it's like that was before all the official stuff happened. So it's whether there's more than a slap on the wrist if we pursue that, because it shows that something dodgy's happened. There's so much of that in football.
I know. And, we know that Dejphon Chansiri is a very emotional character.
Yeah.
And he was mentioning, and I don't think it kind of came up in conversation when, in the craziness of Moore being announced as manager, but he was asked about that alongside, a few other things as well. I thought the local press did a good job of actually bringing up those topics, since they had a rare chance to get the ear and words of Dejphon Chansiri outside of. They had a rare opportunity to do that, so they took the opportunity to ask about what's going on with the accounts. But also they asked about Liam Shaw, and he was like, you could tell that he seemed very, very upset by the fact that basically he was saying that Liam Shaw's agent was like, "Oh, wait on this one. We don't want to talk about a contract right now. Just wait." Yeah. And basically that was them engineering the time to get a pre-contract for Liam Shaw at Celtic.
Yeah. Intriguing. I think it's a watch this space sort of one. I mean, it's not going to be earth-shattering, but it might be another like 50k or something, It might.
Well, I think they're talking about talking about a figure around the ballpark of 300 grand, wasn't it? I think that's what.
That's the sort of agreed amount. It's just how much extra this investigation rakes up. But yeah, there we go. So this something different and novel is we've got a listener question, which is rather nice. So Aaron Johnson on Twitter reached out and basically asked, looking forward to sorry, I won't read out the praise bit there. Sorry about that. So the quick question: how worried are you that a substantial number of the Owls faithful are going to give up supporting the club? I couldn't imagine it myself, but I'm hearing lots of others say so. When we go down to League One and COVID finally sods off enough to have fans back, the support is going to be vital. It's the only thing that sets us apart from your smaller clubs. It's an interesting question. There's a lot of... Twitter is this kind of great... Well, social media in general, not just Twitter, but Twitter's my general window into it. It means you see a plethora of views and things that you're not used to seeing. But I wonder how much Twitter is a particular group of people. It would be interesting to see a kind of wider bit of research about the fan base, how many people are feeling like they're at their wits' end with this. There's certainly plenty of reasons to feel like you're at your wits' end. But Luke, I mean, I think we've both maybe got an interesting bit of perspective to bring to this, because I was just wondering, Luke, I mean, I think you and I have a bit of a perspective on this, in that you had a period of time where we talked about your sabbatical from supporting the club quite so closely. So it'd be sort of interesting to know what were the reasons for sort of falling away a little bit, and then maybe what sort of drew you back in, and then how that kind of relates to the situation we're in now as a club.
That's an interesting one. For me personally, I think it was like a lot of things. It seemed as part of my kind of development. It didn't seem that kind of Sheffield Wednesday went kind of hand in hand with that. I felt growing up, I grew up with my parents divorced, and both of them being very kind of pragmatic people in terms of kind of budgets and money. So they're very conservative. So I didn't get many opportunities to go. My dad actually wrote for my dad had a career working largely in newspapers. He worked for Sheffield newspapers, my dad. And so he did a little bit of journalism on Sheffield Wednesday he used to go and watch reserve games. He's done a few bits and bobs. He's, interviewed players in the 80s. He's interviewed people like Mick Lyons. I haven't been time interviewing Nigel Worthington. My dad used to write a bit for the Wednesday program as well. I think it was called Premiership Points or Premiership People, which was kind of like a roundup. And he didn't get much money from that. He used to sometimes get a few complimentary tickets in the kind of mid-90s. So I recall going to a few games then during really good times. I think my first game I managed to see Roland Nilsson score, though I don't recall that. So there was a little bit kind of around my kind of youth and growing up around Wednesday that it would be a rare treat to go see Sheffield Wednesday. And I think really because I didn't really have the opportunity or the finances to go as much, it kind of something that kind of fell out of my focus. I got into kind of music.
Yeah.
So that kind of seemed like a bit of a transition. And then it kind of felt, when was that? It was probably about 25, 26. I weirdly went to watch a game during Brian Laws's reign. I think it was a 0-0 draw against Charlton. And I think it was just the possibility for me financially that it was something that was possible and viable.
Yeah.
I'm talking a lot right now with someone I see for career coaching about the concept of assumed constraints, which is very interesting. Just kind of the things that we can do, but we actually tell ourselves that we can't do. And I think it just kind of broke something that I can go watch Wednesday. I'm an adult who can fund this thing. And it just kind of got me back into there. And it kind of reignited something in me. The interesting thing I kind of think about this with everyone else is I feel like we often hear this kind of argument, and, Rich and I frequent Owls Talk as one of the more popular, the most popular Sheffield Wednesday message board. I did have periods of other Wednesday message boards in the past, like Owls and Wine.
Me too.
There's always someone, which is a great forum, by the way. There's nothing against that. I've just kind of fallen out of it. There's always a mentality of people online who will tell you on forums such as Owls Talk that they used to go and then they stopped going because they've learned that they could rather play golf on a Saturday afternoon. Yes. And they think that's a better use of their money and their time. The funny thing about that is, I mean, I agree it's expensive, and it's unfortunately for a people's game and something that's so kind of should be so ingrained in the culture and the community of the people of Sheffield who identify as being Wednesdayites. It is expensive. So I can kind of see that argument. But the funny thing is, there's still people on the Sheffield Wednesday message board who probably on there quite a bit who will tell you that they don't go anymore. So in a weird way, I still feel like it's the Wednesday herpes virus, right? It's the virus that's in us all about Sheffield Wednesday, and it can go dormant for great periods of time.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I think there are natural kind of ebbs and flows regarding the amount of people who go to games. I think there are new generations and new people who get into it. I think there are people like me who had a period where, for whatever reason, it wasn't going to happen, and then you may find that you get back into it.
Yep.
I do agree, though, Aaron, that like this is a period it's because we've never experienced, most of us have never experienced in our lifetime, a global pandemic.
The COVID thing is big, isn't it? I think
the COVID thing is huge. It whips it out of people because previously a lot of people had the habit of doing this, and then when it comes back, they might be like, I don't want to revisit that habit.
That's the thing that makes me think maybe that we will see a shift. Because I think in terms of everything else, people speak in hyperbole an awful lot, particularly online. Everything is the worst, the best. There's people feel the need to stretch themselves to absolute extremes. So Adam Reach is the worst player we've ever had, and such is, Deb John Chancellor is the worst chairman we've ever had. The club is as bad, all this sort of thing. It's not. We read the fairly depressing history of Sheffield Wednesday as part of our kind of for initial pandemic reaction, Luke. If folks remember back,
the Tom Whitworth book, yes,
yes, and. There've been worse chairmen before, and there have been worse times before for this football club. But that's not to say this isn't bleak, and relatively it is fairly bleak. I suspect we will, if we go down to League One, we will slough off a group of fans. I will say I don't know how much of a loss they will be to the hardcore, because I know when we went to Wembley, there were some people that discovered that they rediscovered their love for Wednesday, which fantastic. And if we'd gone up, hopefully it all would have been sunshine and roses. We didn't go up, but there has been an attitude that arrived with that group of fans that is nothing is good enough. Like, we should win every game, and even when we win comfortably. And that, quite frankly, is nonsense. There's no God-given right for Sheffield Wednesday to win any football game. And for those of us who have seen more than our fair share of Wednesday games, any win is a joyous little morsel of goodness in an unending trough of swill. Wins should be cherished. Nasty, dirty 1-0, from the jaws of defeat type wins should be cherished. Walking away churlish and unhappy after a 1-0 win is just so alien to me, but it almost became a kind of expectation. The second season under Carlos, I just don't know what happened to the collective mindset, but it's like we did better. That's the best season we've had since we were in the Premier League. And people moaned all the way through that season, and people said we were crap, and people still moan. If you read House Talk, you read Twitter, people still moan about that team and that season. But it's like, that was brilliant. Those are the times you should have been going, this is great. What a good time to be a Wednesday fan. And so I think there will be some people that kind of arrived when we were on the way to Wembley, and we'll probably lose them now that we've gone in the opposite direction. As you say, Luke, they're still Wednesday fans. There's still that deep-seated virus, somewhere in the core of their spine or whatever, wherever herpes lives. In the nervous system, it's still there. But they probably will stop coming to games, and maybe the expectations will go with them in some ways. And that might not be a terrible thing.
I think we need, I think we've seen peaks and troughs of these things before.
Yeah.
That's the nature of what it is. The fact Sheffield Wednesday do have a larger hardcore fan base than a lot of clubs.
And I think that will maintain despite all this.
Right. We maybe, we'll be playing in League One next season, and we might be up against, I don't know, Walsall. I'm not sure who else is in the third division picture. I'm sure we'll have
Luke immediately picks out a club from the old West Midlands, because it's what he does.
Right. And then, there'll be Walsall fans who come to Hillsborough and be like, they're still impressed that Wednesday will have 14,000, 15,000 Wednesdayites there.
And we'll sell out our allocations everywhere we go. And, I just feel like to an extent, there won't be a huge amount of difference. But there will be some. There will be some that don't come back. And I think it will be more than normal because of COVID. There are things, as you say, Luke, we found other things to do with our time. Most of the other things are fairly tedious, but they are cheaper.
The thing I want to say about this as well is, there will be, I don't know if there's ever, the interesting thing is, we have to kind of celebrate the success that we have. We had a lovely email from one of the listeners, David, who talked about relative success for Sheffield Wednesday and talked about, us selling out in the League One promotion decider game against Wickham.
Yeah.
And, I guess that's very much Sheffield Wednesday, what we are now. That's, unfortunately, for our recent history, that's our definition of success. It pales in comparison to where we were in the 90s, but, football is cyclical and peaks and troughs and things like this. The big thing, I think I want to say is there will be at some point in the future, there has to be at some point in the future, unless we go out of business, which could happen. There will be a chairman, or I don't know, maybe even Chancery get a clue and install somebody who's a CEO who will work to try and get some of the appetite that Wednesdayites have for this football club back in effect.
A reset needs to happen, doesn't it? We're overdue a reset, I think.
We are overdue a reset. And it's interesting because I remember at the time, I was getting back into Wednesday, around that time. And that was around the time we didn't have a chairman. And that was the time that, Dave Allen was installed, but he was off, fancying some pigeons or checking the books and Napoleons or whatever he was doing. Practicing being was he in a band in the 60s or 70s or something?
Yeah.
Maybe he's doing that. Maybe he's getting his drum kit out or something. I don't know what he was doing. But anyway, Lee Strafford came in and it felt like we were definitely going up a gear. I think everybody can say that. I think even if you weren't particularly a fan of Lee Strafford, which it seemed there were some people critical, but again, I'm also engaging this off a message board as well, which is not the best way to kind of gauge a fan base. But there is someone who can take us to that next gear. There will be someone in the future. And then eventually we'll start getting that idea and that concept that like you were saying, Rich, with the time with Dave Allen, we'll buy a rubber wristband for a few quid. It'll make us feel that we can buy into this, because right now it is disenchanting to be following Sheffield Wednesday, following them. I followed them from a distance, but everybody follows them. Everyone follows them from the same experience that I have anyway.
Yeah, your experience has become the norm this last.
It has. Everybody is so distanced from the football. Everybody's watching through a feed on the telly. It's not fun. It's really, really not fun. And we've mentioned like the Chancery potluck.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Our potato salads don't cut it.
Exactly. I think that's the other factor as well in all of this is we are cut off from the bit of being a football fan that makes the most sense. I think being in the stadium, being part of a crowd, that's a huge part of what it is to be a fan of a football team. People do talk about it being like a church or like a tribe or whatever, but there is something tribal. There's something like deep rooted in. We're all stood together. We're all pulling for a cause. We're all singing the same words. All those bits are a massive part of being, as much as the people on the pitch. It's that experience, being there, feeling it, seeing it, smelling it, having the hug with the random person that's somehow ended up on your row when there were 3 rows back before you scored. All those things are what football is about as much as anything that happens on a football pitch. And we don't have that. We can't have that at the moment. And without that, football is weird. I'm sick of this fake crowd noise that's always like 7 out of 10. That's not what a crowd sounds like. A crowd goes completely silent sometimes, and then they're really loud sometimes.
Yeah, I know.
Or every football match we watch, it's like the vuvuzela noise during that World Cup in South Africa for me now. This crowd noise at just a constant pitch. It's fake. It's phony. It's weird. But we've grown used to it because, either we watch football with that weird noise on or we don't watch football. So we've all kind of got used to it. But that's not what football's about. It's not what football is. What we're watching is, I don't know, like theoretical football. The real thing of football is fans in stadiums feeling and giving the V's to the opposition when they score or you score, and that silent moment when a home team concedes a goal, the weird way that like suddenly 20,000 people can make no noise whatsoever. You can hear the ball hit the net even though you're hundreds of yards away from it. Those things are football, and we're not getting a chance to have any of that. And I think for me, with all the caution and worry about mixing and vaccines and everything else, as soon as it's okay for me to go to a stadium and watch football, I'm going to a stadium to watch football. Mm-hmm. And I can't be the only one. I just feel like most people will want to get back to it, but I do appreciate there will be some people that's like, well, do you know what? Actually, now me and Moira go for a walk on a Saturday afternoon and it's a lot more chilled out.
Is Moira the name of a girlfriend or a pet turtle? Or
take your pick. I'm not gonna dictate to them what their Saturdays look like. But as soon as I can be, hugging a smelly stranger, I'm there.
We're always just oddly homosexual on this podcast, aren't we, Rich?
Oh dear. Yes. Oh, should we talk about the football match that happened this weekend? Is that a reasonable thing, a sensible thing to do?
That's why we're here, isn't it? That's why we're doing this at this time. We could have just done an episode without talking about Norwich.
We could have done all of this at any time, couldn't we? Yeah.
We could have just recorded like just a quick summary, just like like the Blue Apron adverts where it's just like,
oh yeah,
where it cuts to like cuddled veal and potatoes. Yeah, just put that in. We could just do that instead. We should have done that. But anyway, we're doing this now, so
We're doing it now.
let's apply some effort. More effort than we've seen collectively from Sheffield Wednesday this season into talking about this game of football.
Oh, so, I mean, for me personally, bit of a wish list type team to start off with, apart from maybe up top. But Erigide back in at that left-sided centre-back slot, Hutch back in the middle of a three at the back, Pelupessy in the midfield to be the legs around the failing legs of Bannon and Hutch in the centre. I was quite pleased with it, and Palmer involved. I generally want Palmer involved.
Did you think that was that? You say you thought it was a 3-5-2 we were playing?
Yes, it was. Yeah. Well, yeah, pretty much. I mean, you call it a 5-4-1 or a 5-3-2. No, it wasn't a 2 up top. It was 5-3. It was definitely
right, because I guess Windass is Windass more on the flank.
I saw it as 2. So I saw it as we definitely had 3 centre backs with Lees, Hutch, and Erigide.
Interesting.
Definitely had wing backs in Harris and Palmer, and then Pelupessy and Bannon sort of worked as a 2 further back, and then 2 further forward were Reach and Windass, and then Rhodes was kind of on his own. But when we didn't have the ball, Windass and Reach dropped in and basically became a 4 in the middle. That sort of tended to be the way. That's how I saw it anyway. We really packed the middle, and it worked very well first half, actually. Did you have a different take then?
Well, it's just the presentation was that it was a 4-4-2. The presentation on my feed was. And I thought it was going to be Hutchinson and Lees at centre back. I don't know. Maybe I can't work this out.
It didn't. I didn't see it as a 4-4-2 anywhere else, but it definitely wasn't for what happened in practicality.
Probably makes a lot of sense because I think I agree with you, because one of my notes from the game was basically, if I'm looking at a 4-4-2, then the problem with that would be who's at right back, because through that mentality I kept seeing Palmer and Erigide out on the left so often.
Yeah.
Which makes sense that from that perspective, as Erigide was left centre back and Palmer was playing that left wing back role, and then you got a right wing back berth for Harris, who got forward quite a bit as well. So
interestingly, looking at the kind of average position, so they're definitely the 3 with Hutch at the furthest back of the 3, and then Erigide on the left and Lees on the right hand side of that. They're quite well spread. Like they're kind of the width of the box between the 3 of them is the average position. Palmer on the left, Harris on the right. But interestingly, Windass is all the way out there with Harris. So maybe they were playing. I thought they were more central than that, but it looks like from this that they were pretty much playing out from the wings, those 2. And then the midfield was Bannon and Pelupessy were sort of side by side in midfield. And Rhodes leading the line, but not the furthest. On average, the furthest forward player was actually Reach.
Interesting. It was something new, wasn't it?
It was something new.
Something new from Moore.
Yeah, and when Moore came in the door, he did talk positively about Rhodes. So maybe this is going to be a bit of a model going forward.
Does he talk positively about Marriott?
I don't know.
I'm wondering if Marriott's like really good on the training ground.
Yeah.
Because he's not very good on the pitch at Hillsborough or any other pitch that Sheffield Wednesday are playing on.
Well, fast forward, that is a big, big pivotal moment in this game, and
Okay. Anyway, let's go through in canonical fashion.
Canonical fashion. But I thought we started really well. I thought we were applying pressure, but we were being sensible with it. We weren't just chasing around. We had clear trigger points we were working on, and the most obvious one of those was when we just were not letting Buendia have any time on the ball. So if the ball came into him, there'd be 4 or 5 shirts around him, and just he couldn't breathe.
We said Buendia, Buenatna.
That's exactly what we said.
what Darren Moore said, and it's pre-match geeing up with the players.
And we were rewarded for that good start. There's some sort of, I mean, one of the features today, Bannon was playing deeper than we've seen him recently, and I thought we had a few stray touches, a few bad passes. A couple of times he sort of gave the ball away under very little pressure, almost inexplicably. It was sort of strange. But we kind of recovered the ball from one of Bannon's poor passes forward. And it was played by Pelopessi out to Reach, and Reach just whipped a ball in behind the defence, and Windass read it brilliantly. He was he was immediately on the front foot, took a great first touch with his chest, and then was dragged down by the defender for Norwich, who I've just blanked on his name, Gibson. It was.
Oh, Gibson. Do you think that was I thought that was a very soft free kick.
Oh no. I thought he was in some ways. I thought he was lucky to get just a yellow.
Really?
Because I thought if Windass had naturally been, I thought Windass looked. He's going to beat Hanley in a race.
Yeah.
He'd already beaten Gibson, so it's whether the fullback can get across. And I think if he'd naturally been allowed to take his second touch, now maybe his second touch takes him to the goalkeeper, but that's not what we're asking here. We're asking whether the fullback can get across and cover that. And
you think that's going towards a last man red situation?
I thought so. I thought it was a pretty agricultural taking out. I thought it was a pretty cynical.
What else could we expect from Norwich, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm surprised. Yeah, so I'm surprised that you thought it was soft, because I just thought it was a cynical. Always a yellow, but maybe there was a question about red. But I probably only think that because I'm a Wednesday fan that it could have been a red.
Interesting.
Because I just thought Windass, if he got a second touch as good as his first, he would have been 1-on-1 with Krull. We know that he would just run into Krull because he'd overthink it and not hit a shot. But they don't know that, and that's the important thing.
Yeah. It was very casual, though. But I thought it was casual in the fact that it was so effortlessly played forward from Reach. That was such a good ball. And then nice kind of cushion, chest down from Windass. And then I guess if there's no foul made, then bish bash bosh.
I'd expect him to get a shot away if there's no foul, regardless of what the defenders do. Whether it's a goal or not is another matter.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Bannon took the free kick. Hit it straight at the wall. I
think Bannon's getting ready for his new career at post football as an ice cream van man, because it's Mr. Whippy ice cream, soft and delicate, artful soft curl straight into the wall. And the ball sort of bounced out pretty kindly for Pelupessi that tried to curl an effort in, and Rhodes reacted brilliantly. It sort of he took a touch and turned in one move, and then his second touch is a goal, and it was really, really well taken, instinctive, clever finish. He had a good long look at the linesman to ask the question, but he was fine. There were Wednesday players that were offside, but Rhodes was well and truly onside. He timed it brilliantly and took the goal brilliantly. And I thought that, the early going, most of those good chances were our chances. Reach had a decent chance on the 18th minute mark, hit the target, maybe could have done better with it. That was the one that sort of, I think the fullback missed Gibson with his pass inside, and it just rolled to Reach. And I don't know that Reach knew how good the opportunity was. I think he really could have done better with it, given, if he was aware of the moment and quite how free he was, really. Because Hanley's obviously their captain and he brings a lot to the table, but I think on the ground, Reach is either going to beat him or he's going to get fouled by him. And he was in the box already. So, I think he could have just drawn the moment out a little bit and either got a better shot away or maybe drawn a foul, potentially. But decision-making,
not one of our strong suits at this point in time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We had one of the best Harrises of the season on the 20-minute mark. Palmer played a crossfield ball. I love wing-back to wing-back passes. There was a few of those today that were absolutely peachy. Harris cut inside. He dropped his shoulder, did a step over, and then unleashed a sort of effort with his left foot. But unfortunately, it was, again, right down Krul's throat. We had good chances. We didn't make the most of them, but we did have good chances that first half. And we were really unlucky. I think the one that really sticks out as being an amazing half chance, but a bit disappointing that we didn't manage to make anything of it, was when Palmer spread the ball across to Harris. Maybe kind of overcooked his pass a little bit, but Harris was breaking into the box, and it was all Harris could do really to get anything on the ball to stop it. So the defenders had managed to close him down before he'd really got the ball under control. And unfortunately, the ref spotted an imaginary foul after the corner for some reason. So we didn't, even though we did a clever routine, it didn't amount to much. Anything else from that first half? Anything that stood out to you?
I thought Leeds did very well with. They attacked us a lot down the left flank, and that's really where Norwich was seemingly getting a little bit of purchase into this game. There was a great moment where Pookie was on a break on the angle, sold Hutch for a hot dog. Hutch slipped over, was slid. And then Leeds did very, very well to get back to prevent what I thought was going to be maybe a certain goal, but maybe knowing Pookie, who prior to him notching later in the game was on, 7 goals in 9 games?
Yeah. It was the sort of chance that you expect a guy in the sort of
9 from 7. 9 from 7.
Okay.
I apologize.
That's better than 7 from 9.
That's much better. I know. So that was good. I'll bring up some pithy comments. Let's have a little bit of mild humor and mild mirth before we get into some stuff. Why the fuck is a Huddersfield manager there? Like, I have a big issue with this because it's like, do we?
In terms of like the virus and things, is absolutely unnecessary.
Yeah. And like the game's on TV.
Yeah,
you can watch on TV. Like, what is there a code that like we allow? Like we can't have fans in the ground. Oh, but we can have scouts. Is there like a
I thought the same with Southgate at games, but I think Southgate's got more reason to be there than the Huddersfield manager. Yeah, I agree. That seems completely unnecessary in this day and age.
I don't know if I'm just sound like just a really pithy old man who's just upset at cans these days and how they don't open as well. Something I don't know how big an issue that is, but I'm just
shaking
like, it seems,
to the moon.
Why? I don't know. Pelopessi and good challenge shocker that happened in the first half.
Yeah, a couple of decent interventions, I thought, first half. From the pest dispenser.
The Harris slip on the 37th minute really broke my heart.
That's the one, That's
what you're talking about, wasn't it? I thought it was.
Yeah.
I lost a little bit track of your narrative, but I'm like, I'm sure that's what you're talking about. No, it's fine.
But it was, that it did. It was a real because it was beautiful. The move was brilliant, and then you just think like this is going to be incredible, and you just couldn't get it under.
But a play with the ability and the pace to still get up after he slips over and get us the corner is still something, which is probably why, obviously he's been linked with Middlesbrough. So,
right.
Colin again doing his thing of picking up free, cheap, quick players.
The siren song of Neil Warnock.
That's the thing he does. Like I've said previously, he picks up cheap, quick players.
Yeah.
Mind you, it's a weird thing with Harris. Like we remind ourselves that he is still a quick player, but the fact that we've just ran him into the ground, that his legs look like they're turning into stone at most moments every time he runs, it probably just speaks a lot to the fact that we've played a hell of a lot of him. But anyway, a little bit gutting. I don't know what happened with your commentary, Rich. So the commentator I had on my feed here in Canada through DAZN mentioned the term founder members of the Premier League twice on my commentary.
Oh, right.
I said, why does that statement seem like we were antiquated characters polishing our monocles over a Magna Carta-like document of new greed in the game, rather than simply a club who were in the top tier when the Premier League happened? It was like four score and 20 years ago.
I think the highlight of our commentary was Danny Gabidon, when Lees went down. They said, "Oh, he's collided his head with Hanley's elbow there." No, it's like just like, oh yeah, classic. A head is a really good thing to use to attack an elbow. Like it was like Lees had kind of done. It was like it was an even exchange for a start, and also a bit of an implication that like Lees had sort of attacked Hanley's elbow with his head. Like, no, that's called elbowing someone in the head. Generally, we normally look at that the other way around. You know, this is kind of victim blaming. Oh, the guy that's leaking claret because you just elbowed him in the face. He was not trying to headbutt your elbow. That was never the intention.
So I noted in my notes, at the stroke of halftime, Rhodes' goal felt about 4 games ago at that point.
I can see that. Yeah,
I'm imagining Jordan Rhodes describing it like a dream and boring everyone in the process. I scored, but it didn't feel like I scored.
But it was interesting. So we got to the halftime, and I thought.
Also, Jordan Rhodes was the troubadour for the regular Wednesday haunting song of "I Flicked It On for No One."
Yes,
that was a nice flick on. I mean, it was as the song goes, it was for no one, but it was nice. The thing I wanted to ask you, Rich, was a lovely
flick on, wasn't it?
There was
also, was it first half or second half where he got a really good flick on and just stared at Reach, like he gave him a death stare, like, why are you not? Go on, mate, up it, on your bike.
And so the thing I wanted to ask you was in terms of this, because I felt this feels like the more I felt like we mixed it up in terms of distributing it from Westwood from goal kicks, because I haven't noticed as ever, to a fault against, Rotherham and what was that other game we lost?
There's been so many, Luke.
There's been so many. The one last week we did. Who was it?
Reading?
Reading. Yes, there we go. I want to say Swansea for some reason. We were playing it out from the back to a fault, like pretty much every time.
Yes,
so it was interesting to see us mix it up a bit. How much of that was design, and how much do you think that was kind of Kieran Westwood being like, I'm used to doing this?
No, I think we generally reacted quite well to Norwich didn't press us early doors, so we had quite happily played it around as they were letting us, and I think probably from their point of view, we got through the phases too easily. So it's okay. It's one thing to let somebody get to the halfway line and then maybe close them down, or they get like 2/3 is the kind of classic one, and then you close down. We were getting through the phases much better. We were doing that transition into attacking moments probably better than they expected. So they started then pressing us much further up the field. And I thought as you say, we responded well, rather than kind of, there was a couple of times it was a few hairy moments. Mainly I thought Uragide had those hairy moments, although maybe not his own fault. I think he kind of, again, competency is a dangerous thing to show in this Sheffield Wednesday team, because if you can cope with the ball under pressure, you will be given the ball under pressure. So he seemed to have a few moments where he's like almost pushed into mistakes, but generally well, and we changed it up. So as you say, we didn't insist on doing it when the pressure was good from Norwich. We did go long sometimes when we needed to, and hit that sort of release valve.
Yeah, it was a decent first half, wasn't it? I liked how compact we were. I liked how we played it around. We broke well. We used the wing players well.
And it didn't feel entirely unsustainable like Luton. Like Luton just felt like we'd gone mad.
Yeah.
And that was all we had left. And then obviously we were just knackered and had nothing. Mm-hmm. We were so powder puff second half. It was, we clearly to borrow some crude phraseology, we'd shot our bolt that first half against Luton. It wasn't like that. It felt like this was quite sustainable. We could probably do this fairly comfortably for the rest of the game, or at least see out the difficult moments early doors. So it's interesting in terms of what changed. Second half is pretty much one-way traffic, unfortunately. And it's almost that thing of, it felt like we'd been told, first 10, 15 minutes, lads, we'll see through the first 10, 15 minutes. And it was like, it did feel like the game was just about that maybe they had lost a bit of their fizz. Norwich, they rattled out the blocks. They were right on it, and had lots of possession, lots of set pieces, lots of almost chances. And they were pressing like mad, so we were making mistakes that weren't helping us either. And just as it started to feel like that momentum was shifting again, and maybe the game was going to go into a bit of a plateau, unfortunately, that's when we sort of switched off, and the goal came. Because Hutch had done a really good job on Pukki. I thought he'd really intelligently picked his moments to kind of break from him and help other defenders. In particular, in the second half, he had a really good clearing header where it's like he knows he's got the job of marking Pukki, but he knew it would be better. There was a moment where the ball was kind of like winnable, and he broke away from that and got a great header clear. But he just switched off.
I feel like I watch a lot of Sheffield Wednesday. I don't know if I watch quite enough football to kind of really to justify any great insights into the game, Rich. Like, what I'm curious, like this happens a lot to Wednesday. I mean, it's interesting. We did a job on Norwich in the first half. We made them seem quite ordinary, but we know that like there's plenty more gears to Norwich after seeing that first half. I was a bit staggered that like it seemingly went up from gear 1/2 for Norwich to 4 and 5 for them. Like it was like a very marked kind of improvement from them, which I mean, they have the capability and the ability to do with the players that they have. Like I made a note to say it's scary, the ability and confidence that they have in themselves. It is so far removed from who these players are at Sheffield Wednesday. I mean, we've had quite a few of these players who've probably exhibited bits like that during times of probably the cream of Carlos's time for players like Bannon and Lees and Hutchinson as well, to include within that. And Westwood. There's still personnel left over from there. But the thing that kind of frustrated me from a Sheffield Wednesday perspective, well, losing the game doesn't really help.
Yeah.
But like all of the shape went, all of our compactness. I'm like, is that because we're trying to kind of mark Norwich out of this, and then they're just loosening and stretching the game so much by creating so much space? Is that what's happening?
That was the main difference in the kind of flow of the game. So first half, we seem to control. So whether it's a confidence shift or a tactical shift or an energy shift, it's probably a bit of everything. But the first half, we kept it compact, and then were really clever about when we decided when we would go wide, and we used that really well. So that's how you end up with these passes from Palmer to Harris, and that kind of cutting them open, because we sucked them into a side, and then we expanded the game. And it's us always metering that out. Second half, they just put their wing backs on the white of the lines, like they were just stretching the game all the time. They very rarely came in, those fullbacks at all, second half. And that meant we had to match them or give them the ball in the wide areas. And I think we didn't quite decide which we wanted to do. And because we then ended up getting stretched, that stretched us, and it meant there was more spaces in the middle for them. We couldn't control the middle anymore in the way that we were doing. But I'm sure a bit of it is that people like Reach and Windass were doing a disciplined role that they're probably not particularly good at or used to first half, and at some point there's just little slips that happen, or their nature gets in the way. I mean, particularly the second goal, it's sort of madness from Windass in a way. But we shouldn't skip ahead. Ironically, saying skip.
No, so I mean, regarding regarding that first goal, like I mean, it's a great finish from Pukki.
Incredible finish.
The thing that really I think I kind of got frustrated with is the fact that Skip is allowed to just waltz into the box.
Yeah, it's not a good look, is it?
No, that's the thing. Like that's the big pivotal moment.
Yeah, I'd like to. I mean, we've sat down immediately, sort of post match. So I'd like. They didn't do much replays of any of the goals. So I would like to watch it back a little bit to kind of see quite what happened. But yeah, Skip gets loose. If you remember the last game against them, what they figured out was if they dribbled, they would run through our lines of defence, and there was a little bit of that as well. Just holding on to the ball and being a bit braver seemed to pay off for them. What I was going to say, sorry, in terms of the sort of positive aspect, or the way the game could have turned, if we had been better when we had the ball. Obviously, Norwich are taking a risk playing as wide as they were, but we didn't have enough quality possession to punish them for the gaps that they would. There would have been gaps forward, but it took us too long to get our foot on the ball and actually do things. And I think we almost waited for them to get tired of pressing.
It seemed like there were a few moments we looked to be kind of a little bit enterprising on the counter. I want to say it looked like it was something that could have happened. I'm just frustrated with the lack of shape.
Yeah,
that's the big thing in the second half, and it's very endemic to Sheffield Wednesday.
But there's also a thing of, as I said in the first half, one of the things we did really well was swamp Buendia, who's obviously their kind of catalyst player. You know, he kind of plays in behind Pukki. He feeds Pukki. Unfortunately, they've got like 3 or 4 good players that can do that same sort of role. Maybe not as well as Buendia. You know, ideally Buendia does it, but if he's marked, then Cantwell can do it, and Skip can do it, and whatever the lad that they brought on can do it. Dowell can do it. That's the problem we have is if you stop Bannon, we're kind of, that's it. That's our idea's gone. And if you stop Bannon and probably Windass, we basically can't play anymore. Like, it's the benefit of having options means that they flooded the midfield with all those clever, creative players, and then almost to kind of thumb their nose at us once they'd scored, Buendia goes back to being the person that they look for, because we're not marking Buendia because we can't mark all of them. So we start not marking any. So then Buendia went back to being this kind of catalyst pivot player for them. It's so that, well, we'll get to the end of the game. There's comments to sort of talk about at the end of the game. Should we just quickly run through the kind of moment? So they got their goal. Skip played it into Pukki. Pukki was in a lot of space and took his chance very, very well. Like,
such a good finish.
Pummeled it into the top corner.
Yeah.
Absolutely no chance for Westwood. We then brought on Marriott for Rhodes.
Why?
And completely lost any outball that we had. I don't know. I was so annoyed as well because they showed Callum Patterson doing like 20 keepy uppies on his shoulder at half time. And I was like, yeah, it'll be good when he comes on. But we brought on Marriott first.
I know.
The 77th minute, it was a bad set piece from Norwich. It just hit a weird sort of little chip.
Can we also talk about the 67th minute? Windass wasted a really good chance.
He did.
It really, really made me angry. That was such a bad shot.
Well, Pelupessy was stood there just ready.
Yeah, he had options.
Free in the box. I did. Did you capture the camera, like zoomed in on Windass when he was on the floor after that chance, looking at Pelupessy very dismissively and telling him to shut his effing mouth?
I did not see that, no.
It's nice to know the team spirit's alive and well. We might be down in the doldrums, but these guys love each other and they're all pulling in the same direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big miss. That was the frustrating. We did have some opportunities this second half.
And then Windass, had that cross he scuffed along the deck for Marriott as well.
Yeah, I don't know where he could have put it, to be fair to Windass. Marriott didn't exactly give him a huge amount of options.
It might have just been better if he'd tried and brought it in a bit and then tried and raft a shot at goal, on the angle, and maybe could have, I don't know, squeezed a corner out of it. I don't know. But again, my disappointment of Josh Windass just keeps growing, which, hey, maybe that's a good segue into the second Norwich goal.
Hey. So Buendia chips it straight at Windass. One of the worst set pieces I've seen in a long, long time. Windass gets a complete rush of blood to the head and just runs straight up the middle of the pitch as fast as he can, and is very, very easily tackled by Buendia, immediately handing him back the ball that he'd just given to him.
Windass is a big Red Hot Chili Peppers fan, is he? Give it away, give it away, give it away now.
Buendia brings the ball forward, plays it to Cantwell. Palmer dives in weirdly. I don't know what he was thinking.
Was that Palmer or was that Hutchinson?
It was Palmer.
It was Palmer, okay.
Palmer sort of made a desperate lunge when, if he'd stood still, he would have been perfectly placed to defend the ball from Cantwell, or defend Cantwell getting towards the goal. But because he dives in, Cantwell's got the freedom of the box, and again, similarly picks an absolute gorgeous effort in the top corner. This time, sort of more of a curling effort than the smashed one from Pookie. I've called him the glass ceiling destroying Cantwell. Why is he a glass ceiling destroyer, Luke? Because he's the first 6-year-old girl to play professional football.
I noted it was a great finish from the Bale fancying ex-member of One Direction, Todd Campbell.
It goes beyond cute member of a boy band. He just looks like a kind of slightly huffy girl, I think, to me.
I want to say I think it's one of the better haircuts I think I've seen today. I have a big thing with seeing some really bad haircuts. I don't like what Sam Hutchinson is doing. He's like gelling the hair to his head. There was a moment kind of early on in the second half. I think I made the note here. Hutchinson's haircut is crap. So is McLean's that we go to. Is everybody trying to look like a FIFA 15 player or something?
I've always thought McLean's got a kind of teddy boy charm. He looks like a greaser.
I maybe I like him a bit more now because I'm thinking of the Adam Green song, Teddy Boys, which Richard Miller put me onto Adam Green. So I always think of that when I listen to Adam Green, Rich and I hanging out, and Rich playing me some new songs that were fun and inappropriate, and Rich throwing some shapes while he drives. Lots of fun. Yeah. Good memories.
Good to frighten people when you're driving. It's good to do. Any other haircuts that sort of caught your...
No, though I do want to say there is a fun bit with this game is, I mean, despite the fact that we scored from a free kick, effectively, this was a bad game for free kicks.
It was.
Like, it seemed like every time as a free kick, it seemed like the commentator I had tried to build it up as like a real moment, and then there are just so many bad free kicks. The 72nd minute, the commentator decrees that Dowell has a very good left foot. But I have summarized that it is a good left foot, but one that's never met the concept of a free kick as he spunks it into the wall.
Yeah, a couple of times I really felt like maybe it was built up by the commentary, but I thought, oh, great, here's a goal coming. I just assume Norwich must have people that are good at free kicks, but maybe they don't. Yeah,
McLean made the conversion. You know, he put it...
Yeah, he did.
On the 51st minute mark.
I can't remember how good Westwood is at free kicks. He's rubbish at penalties, but I can't remember. Remember Lee Grant, if you got it on target, it was a goal.
Yeah.
Lee Grant was a really good goalkeeper, but he was rubbish at free kicks.
Do you remember that goal he conceded against the Pigs at Hillsborough? The one where we drew 1-1 and Potter scored.
Oh,
It was the one where Lee Williamson did this kind of cross shot
Yes.
And then Grant just kind of flat turns the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems kind of endemic for Sheffield Wednesday. We have goalkeepers who don't do particularly well with free kicks.
Yeah, seems to be
We've never really got the concept of why we're setting a wall and what the goalkeeper is setting the wall for. You know?
Well, both of Westwood's ones, I suppose you just have to make a choice, but both of Westwood's walls were basically like if this is on target, it's a goal, because I can see this little narrow window, and then the whole of the rest of the goal is free, basically. So if you hit that with any pace, it's a goal, because I would never get across. But all of them hit the wall, so I mean, maybe when it's that close, it is very difficult to get up and down again, isn't it?
Well, there is always that temptation, as we found from Windass. Then it's just, why try and get it at the goal when you can raft it into your teammates' knackers?
Absolutely lace it into someone's testes. The last sort of gasp chance of the game, I got a little moment where I thought I got hopeful, Luke, and I thought we might have a good go at getting a draw. I thought around we had the long throw, and Pelupessy had a chance in the 89th minute where he kind of cut in, and again probably should have passed, but he took the shot instead of passing to Marriott. I suppose you just feel like you've done all the hard work. Why would you give it to Marriott to mess up? I can sympathise. That's it for my notes from the game. Anything from you?
I think
thoughts?
I think that's it. So I guess as the law of the land has gone to what we do in this podcast, we've got to pick a villain, Rich. This is a tough one.
This is a tough one. Are there any honourable mentions before we do that? I suppose Jordan Rhodes did what it says on the tin, didn't he?
He did. I think we've got to think about that, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So that's good. It's just difficult because, like I've mentioned, in terms of that Jordan Rhodes goal, it felt like an eternity ago.
It did.
It felt like we scored a goal. It felt like we scored a goal on that same pitch 70 years ago, and then we got on the time machine and came back.
I thought he did more than just score the goal, though, today. I thought first half,
Rhodes,
he actually looked like a fairly effective frontman at times.
Interesting.
He won free kicks, which is...
I don't quite share that same opinion, but like...
Okay. Or him, relatively.
Sure.
Maybe all.
Sure.
I'm going to put forward for my villain. I think it's Liam Palmer. I think the goal comes from that side, so he's him or Uragide, or both him and Uragide are complicit in the first goal. And then that second goal, he just didn't need to do. He was so rash, and he didn't need to be. I don't think it happens if he doesn't dive in. I don't. Or it's a lot harder for Cantwell if he doesn't dive in.
Interesting. So that was an interesting thing. I was chatting with my eldest brother, and he was like, "Irahide's crap." That's what he was saying.
I don't like him there. Weirdly, he might be the best in the squad there, but I don't like him there on the left-hand side.
Right. Because Urahide is also another one who's been linked with other clubs, and I don't know. I think I'd rather see him
being eyed for international call-ups as well.
Wow.
Being watched by the Dutch FA, Nigerian, and England potentially.
Jeepers.
That's what they said on the commentary.
I'd like to keep him, but I don't know if he wants to stay. I don't know if he's got better offers. I don't think it's like, oh, we must keep this player as well. I don't know. Like, I mean, this is the thing. As part of his development, he's going to make errors.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, do we want to see him?
I like how full throttle he is. I like how wholehearted he plays the game. I think he's a right back or a right-sided centre-back. He's not a middle of a three. He's not the left side of a three. He's not a left back. I think he's played left back a couple of times recently as well. He's none of those things.
Yeah.
But I think he might end up being a decent right back in time. It's just, as you say, do we have the patience? I think if we end up in League One, I think a season playing League One football at right back for him would be fantastic for his career. And maybe for us if we're there.
We will be there.
Well, yeah, we will be there. It's whether we're there with him, whether we're together.
So you've gone for Palmer for your villain of the piece.
I think particularly that second goal.
I'm going to go for Josh Windass.
Oh yeah, that's again that second goal.
The second goal, and then I think he was wasteful of the other chances that we had. I'm so disappointed with Windass.
I know. I feel that. I think that's a good shout.
He's really good once every 15 or 20 games, it seems. He's really, really good in that game. And then I think there's also, if I can think of ratios, let's just do this off the top of my head. Once every 20 games, he's phenomenal. I think there's about 10 of those games. I think he's 6-7. 6-7 with mixed output. And then I think there's another 9 games out of the 20 where he's just disappointing.
Yeah. I think he's the phrase flatters to deceive. I think he's maybe the embodiment of that in a way. And I think Reach can be that as well. So the pair of them playing practically the same role does leave a lot of room for frustration. Just as a final thought for this game, to be honest, this sort of performance is my worry in a nutshell, in that Moore feels like the right man, but he's arrived too late. I think this was much better than what we've watched all season, but the result is the same. And again, we're in that position. It's a big if, it's a huge if, but if we play this well in other games, we will get results, but it's whether we can do that. And even then, it probably isn't enough. Time is the thing that's against us here, unfortunately.
I know.
10 games to make up at this point, a 5-point deficit. It's more than that, isn't it?
7.
7-point deficit. I mean, it's massive.
And that's for one team.
That's for one team.
And then, I mean, Rotherham. I have a lot of faith in Rotherham to score more goals and win more games than Sheffield Wednesday. So I can probably see them leapfrogging Birmingham. But I don't know. It looks like the other teams, like above that, have enough in the tank to kind of eke enough results to keep going, including Coventry, who I thought would be really disappointing.
Starting to pull away a little bit.
Yeah, I wondered if there's going to be a St Andrews double relegation header. A double bogey.
Everybody lying on the floor crying rather than just one team.
Exactly.
There you go. Fun. That's a fun thought, isn't it, to end things on?
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
One positive, I'll just say thank you very much to Jay Butler for a lovely review. Each positive there is a shot in the arm for us, so thank you for that. And hopefully not too long now till we'll all have a shot in our arm and be allowed to mix with each other, and as I say, hug drunken strangers. So that's a bit of positivity, isn't it, Luke?
Yeah. Eventually there'll be some degree of normalcy returned.
Right, let's pull out before we get maudlin again. It will at some point. It will all be okay. And each day that passes, we are closer to that day. Have a good week, Luke.
You too, Rich.
Cheerio, folks.
See you.